The basement door was open. That was the first wrong thing. I saw it from the kitchen. Mug of lukewarm coffee in my hands. Morning light slanting in over the sink. The door at the end of the hallway, a heavy fireproof door Elliot had insisted on installing for tape archive safety, stood cracked open, blackness yawning at the bottom of the stairs. Elliot never left that door open. Not once in 38 years in this house. He'd been gone for 9 months. And still, some part of me expected him to call from the basement. Marge, can you bring me another reel? Not this. Not that open mouth of darkness. I set the mug down so hard it sloshed. For a moment I just stood there, palms flat on the counter, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. Maybe I'd forgotten to close it last night. Maybe the house had shifted and the latch hadn't caught, except I hadn't gone down there in weeks. The chill started between my shoulder blades, spreading out over my arms. I wiped my hands on my robe, crossed the kitchen, and pushed the door open the rest of the way. The light switch was on the left, halfway down. Elliot had put it there so he could flip it with his elbow when his arms were full of boxes. My fingers shook as I felt along the cool concrete wall. Click. The fluorescent tubes buzzed to life one by one, washing the narrow staircase in flat white. It smelled the way it always did. Dust, old paper, a ghost of solder and tape. I walked down, hand pressed to the rail, robe brushing the steps. Halfway to the bottom I could see the racks, wire shelving lined with tapes in neat rows, each box labeled in Elliot's tiny engineer handwriting. The little work table with his splicing block and magnifier lamp, the heavy metal cabinet with his microphones, and at the end of the room, against the far wall, on its own wooden stand, there should have been. I stopped on the last step. There was a rectangle on the carpet where the stand had been. Faded pile, darker around the edges. An outlet plate on the wall with nothing plugged into it. A dust outline where cables had hung. The Studer A807 was gone. For a second, my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. The space looked wrong, like someone had cut a hole out of a photograph. No, I said out loud. My voice sounded small in the big room. I walked to the empty patch of carpet, stood there like the machine might flicker back into existence if I just stared hard enough. For 20 years, that reel-to-reel had sat here, Elliot's pride and joy. The machine he'd babied with more tenderness than most people give their own joints. He'd bought it used from a radio station when Lauren was in college. That was the year he started transferring his old live recordings, everything from bar bands to string quartets to digital. He called the Studer his time machine. Said every reel stored in this basement was a doorway back to a night, a sound, a younger version of himself. Toward the end, when the cancer moved from possible to certain, he'd sit in front of it and listen to old sessions with his eyes closed, fingers resting on the transport controls, like a pilot refusing to let go of the yoke. The idea of that machine being anywhere but here made my stomach twist. Footsteps sounded overhead, dull thuds through the ceiling. Front door closing. Voices. I knew that rhythm as well as I knew my own heartbeat. Lauren. And Travis. Of course. I turned toward the stairs. By the time I reached the top, I'd tucked my shaking hands into the sleeves of my robe. The hallway felt colder now, the light from the kitchen too harsh. When I stepped into the doorway, they were already there. Lauren just inside the back door, Travis a step behind her. Lauren looked pale, her blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, no makeup, eyes big and wary. My sweetheart always looked younger without her professional armor. Mom, she started, voice too bright. We were just, where is it? I asked. Lauren blinked. Where is what? The Studer. My voice stayed surprisingly even. Elliot's machine. The A807. Travis shifted his weight, hands buried in the pockets of his joggers. He wouldn't quite meet my eyes. That alone told me the answer. Marjorie, he began, smoothing his beard with one thumb. Maybe we should sit down and... Where is it? I repeated. Lauren looked between us, throat working. Mom, don't be mad, okay? It's just, it was sitting there, and... My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Travis exhaled, like he was doing me a favor. I sold it. It is not righty. The words hit like a misstep on the stairs. Sudden drop, air punched out of my lungs. You... what? It came out a whisper. I sold it, he said again, faster this time, as if speed would turn it into something reasonable. Yesterday, I found a buyer in Sedona, $5,000, cash, which, honestly, is generous for a dinosaur like that. I mean, you can get a decent used car for that kind of money. 5,000. My mind snagged on the number the way it had on the empty space in the basement. You sold Elliot's Studer for $5,000? Lauren flinched at Elliot's name. Travis rolled his eyes so fast he probably thought I wouldn't notice. Marjorie, he said, slipping into the gentle, patronizing tone I'd come to loathe. It's just a machine. It's not like we sold his ashes. Travis, Lauren hissed, elbowing him. Don't. No, babe. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. He turned back to me. Elliot's gone. That thing's been collecting dust for almost a year. The basement's like a museum. You don't even go down there. I stared at him. At this man my daughter had married 3 years ago. This man who called me Mom at Thanksgiving, and Marjorie when he wanted something. It wasn't yours to sell, I said. He shrugged. It was in the family. Lauren and I talked about it. I looked at my daughter. Sweetheart? End quote. Her eyes filled with tears immediately, the way they had when she was 5 and knocked over a vase. Mom, I didn't know he was going to do it yesterday, she said quickly. We had talked about maybe selling some of the equipment just to clear space. Travis's consulting work has been slow, and the mortgage, and she swallowed. He said he found a guy willing to pay cash. We're behind on the credit cards. I thought we'd talk to you first, but when I came home last night, it was already, she broke off, biting her lip. So you took it while I was asleep? That's not fair, Travis snapped. We came by after 9. Lights were off. You go to bed early. Lauren still has her key. We didn't want to wake you up and stress you out. Stress me out. Right. Elliot's machine. The one he'd polished, cleaned, aligned, obsessively maintained. The one he'd joked would outlive both of us. Sold like an old lawnmower. $5,000, I repeated. My voice sounded strangely calm in my own ears. My chest, though, felt like someone had tightened a belt around it. And you didn't think to ask me first. Travis spread his hands in a helpless gesture. Would you have said yes, Marjorie? No. Well. He lifted his eyebrows. Then asking would have just made everyone upset. Babe, Lauren said softly. Maybe just, we're doing this for us, he barreled on. For our future. We've been talking about a getaway for months. You know how hard I've been working networking with those production guys in LA, and they're all going to be at that retreat in Tulum. Flights aren't cheap. $5,000 barely covers it. Tulum, I repeated. You sold Elliot's machine to pay for a beach trip? It's not just a beach trip, he said, jaw tightening. It's an investment in my business. Connections, opportunities. That's how this works now. I thought you'd be happy we're taking initiative instead of begging you for help with your savings. Lauren put a hand on his arm. Travis, stop, please. I looked at my daughter. At the dark circles under her eyes, the way she was pressing her mouth into a thin line, like she was holding something in or trying not to let something out. Mom, she said, we'll pay you back when things stabilize. I promise. You can't pay me back, Lauren, I said quietly. Because it wasn't about the money. Silence fell over the kitchen like a heavy blanket. Images flashed behind my eyes. Elliot bent over the Studer with a tiny screwdriver, tongue caught in his teeth. Elliot guiding Lauren's hands when she was a teenager, showing her how to thread tape through the heads. Elliot, thin and gray, listening to a reel of her college piano recital with tears in his eyes. I felt something crack inside my chest, not with a scream, not with a dramatic shatter, but with the quiet, exhausted sound of something giving way after bearing too much weight for too long. I need you both to leave, I said finally. Marjorie, Travis started. Now, I didn't raise my voice. 35 years as a librarian had taught me how to project command without volume. I can't talk to either of you right now. Go. Mom, Lauren's voice broke. Please don't. Sweetheart, I forced myself to soften my tone with her. Go with your husband. We'll talk later. Travis muttered something under his breath about overreaction, but he guided Lauren toward the door. She looked back once, hand pressed to her mouth. I didn't trust myself to meet her eyes. When the door closed behind them, the house fell into the kind of silence that hums. I walked back to the basement, every step heavier than the last. I stood in the empty space where the Studer had been and pressed my palm to the wall outlet as if I could feel a residual warmth. Nothing. Elliot, I whispered. Love, I'm so sorry. The fluorescent lights hummed above. A tape box on the shelf leaned sideways, and I straightened it because my hands needed something to do. When I finally went back upstairs, I did what I'd been doing every morning since the funeral. Made coffee, opened my notebook, and tried to make a list of things I still knew for certain. Today, the page stayed blank. The phone rang at 7:12 the next morning. I'd been awake since 4, wandering the house in my robe like a ghost. By 7, I was at the kitchen table, staring at a yellow legal pad filled with neat lists that all boiled down to the same sentence: I don't know what to do. The ring cut through the quiet, shrill, and old-fashioned. Elliot had refused to get rid of the landline. Cell towers go down, he'd say. Copper wire is forever. Apparently not forever, I muttered as I reached for the receiver. Hello? Ma'am? Is this Marjorie Hale? The voice was male, rough-edged, a little hoarse, like its owner had either been crying or hadn't slept or both. This is she, I said automatically. Old habits. Who's calling? There was a tiny pause, like he was bracing himself. My name is Howard Garrison, he said. I own Red Rock Audio, up in Sedona. I have Elliot Studer, the A807, and he left something in it for you. I sat up straighter so fast my chair squeaked. You have it? My heart lurched. The Studer? Yes, ma'am. The ma'am sounded natural, respectful. Your son-in-law brought it in yesterday. Mr. Parker, tall, beard, talked about needing cash fast. Travis, of course. I paid him the $5,000, Howard went on. But the moment I saw the serial number, I knew whose machine it was. Elliot and we go back. Went back. He corrected himself, voice thickening. He told me if anything ever happened, and this deck changed hands, I was to call you. My fingers tightened around the receiver. Elliot told you that? Yes, ma'am. The ma'am softened. He made me promise. Said you might not know what he'd done. What he'd done? My pulse jumped. What are you talking about? Could you come up here? Howard asked. I could explain on the phone, but I'd rather you see it. Elliot left more than just instructions. My mind raced through possibilities, bumping off each one like shoes in a dryer. Sedona was an hour and a half's drive. I hadn't been further than the grocery store in months. I suppose I could, I said slowly. I'll text you the address, Howard said. Red Rock Audio and Restoration. We're on 89A, just past the gallery district. If you can make it this morning, that'd be best. Why? I heard him take a breath. Because whatever Elliot left, it's in the Studer, he said. And I don't want it here any longer than it has to be. He went to a lot of trouble, Marjorie. I think it's important. The drive to Sedona felt like driving through someone else's life. I hadn't been there since Elliot's last birthday. We'd spent a day wandering through the galleries, arguing about abstract sculpture, eating ice cream on a bench while tourists took pictures of the red rocks like they might disappear if no one documented them. Now the same rocks loomed against a cloudless sky, red and ancient and indifferent. Red Rock Audio sat in a low stucco building at the edge of an industrial strip, half hidden behind a row of skinny cottonwoods. The sign over the door was hand-painted, a reel-to-reel silhouette, and the words restoration, archiving, mastering. A man in his late 60s waited by the door, hands tucked into the pockets of a faded denim jacket. His hair was silver and shaggy, his beard trimmed short. He had the look of someone who'd built things with his hands all his life. When I pulled into the parking space out front, he stepped forward, squinting into the sun. Marjorie? He called. I got out, smoothed my skirt, and crossed the cracked asphalt. Mr. Garrison? He smiled faintly. Howard, he corrected, holding out his hand. Elliot would smack me if I made you call me Mr. Garrison. I took his hand. His grip was firm, but his fingers trembled just enough that I noticed. You were at the funeral, I said slowly, a flicker of memory stirring. Back row, gray suit, red tie. You left before we had a chance to talk. He nodded, eyes suddenly bright. Couldn't stay, he said. I tried. Thought I'd say something, thank him properly. But, he swallowed hard. I'm sorry, I should have come by sooner. My throat tightened. I'm glad you called now. Howard nodded once, like that was an anchor he could hold on to. Come on in. She's in the back. Elliot would kill me if I left her out here with the amateur stuff. The main room looked like an explosion in an electronics museum. Racks of old tape decks, turntables, tube amps, posters from long-gone festivals. On a high shelf, a framed photo of a much younger Elliot and Howard standing in front of a tiny storefront, holding a grand opening banner between them. You knew him a long time, I said. Since '99, Howard said over his shoulder as he led me through to the back when this place was just a rented warehouse with a leaky roof and a half-dead air conditioner. I didn't know that. He glanced back at me. That's because Elliot wasn't one to brag, he said quietly. He just showed up when people needed him. The restoration room smelled like my basement. Warm electronics, old paper, dust. Workbenches lined the walls, each with its own lamp and tool set. In the center of the room, on a rolling stand, sat the Studer. My knees almost gave out at the sight of it. Elliot's machine looked exactly the way it had in our basement. Same matte gray panels, same big reels, same little scratch near the power switch where he'd once dropped a screwdriver. Howard had draped a clean cotton cover over it. He pulled it back now with a reverent touch. Here she is, he said softly. Elliot's time machine. I stepped closer, reached out, and laid my hand on the metal front panel. It was cool and solid under my palm, like touching the hood of a car that hadn't run in a while. Elliot, I whispered. What did you do? Howard stood beside me, hands on his hips. He saved my life, he said abruptly. You know that? I turned to him. No, I said. I didn't. In '99, I'd burned through every credit card I had trying to keep my first shop open, Howard said. Bad location, bad timing, too much optimism, not enough math. Bank wouldn't touch me. I was a middle-aged audio nerd with nothing but a dream and a busted Nakamichi. He huffed a laugh. Then this guy walks in with a box of tapes and that quiet, laser-focused look of his. Says he's heard I do good work. Elliot, I said. Yeah, Howard nodded. He liked how I handled his stuff. We got talking. I told him the truth about the loan, the shop, the fact that I'd probably be selling my van to make rent. He looked at the Studer, eyes going distant. 2 days later, he's back. With paperwork, he'd co-signed a loan for me. Put his name, his credit, his savings on the line for a guy he'd just met. I pressed my fingers against the edge of the machine to steady myself. None of that had ever made it into our dinner table conversations. He said it was a good risk, Howard went on. Said the world needed people who knew how to listen properly. His lips twitched. Took me 8 years, but I paid back every cent. Business turned around, bought this place, hired staff, got to the point where I could tell people no when they wanted to toss history into a dumpster. He spread his hands. All because Elliot believed in me when no bank did. I swallowed against the lump in my throat. He never told me, I said. Any of that. Howard shrugged one shoulder. That's who he was, Marjorie. He didn't do it to brag. He did it because he thought it was right. He stepped closer to the deck and tapped the metal panel just below the right reel. 2 years ago, he brought the Studer in, said he wanted it tuned up, but that wasn't really why he was here. I looked where he pointed. There, almost invisible, unless you knew where to look, was a hairline seam in the metal. We spent an entire Saturday retrofitting a hidden compartment behind the chassis, Howard said. I told him he was nuts. He told me it was the only place he could think of that certain people would never look. He snorted. Said Lauren's husband thought tape machines were dusty junk. The words landed like a small stone dropped in a deep pond. What's in it? I asked. Howard stepped back. That's for you to see, ma'am, he said. Elliot was very clear about that. Only Marjorie, he said. If something happens to me, you keep the deck safe and you call her. Dime. My hands were shaking again. But this time it wasn't just grief. It was something sharper, edged with fear. How do I open it? I asked. Howard reached up and flicked the power switch. The Studer hummed to life, VU meters glowing amber. He crouched, pointed at the row of transport buttons. Okay, he said. See this? He pressed. Stop and rewind at the same time, held them, then nudged the tape lifter lever twice. There was a soft click behind the panel, like a latch releasing. He straightened. Now, you pull gently from here. He tapped the lower right corner of the front face. I slid my fingers into the tiny gap, took a breath, and pulled. The panel swung out like a door, revealing a dark, shallow compartment just big enough for a few objects. Inside, nestled like relics in a shrine, were a folded, handwritten letter with my name on the front, a small black USB drive with a red cap, 2 compact reel tapes in clear plastic cases, each labeled in Elliot's handwriting, a tiny brass key taped to a business card. My knees gave that little warning tremor again. "I'll leave you alone," Howard said softly. "There's a chair over there. Take your time, Marjorie. I'll be in the front if you need anything." When the door closed behind him, the room fell quiet except for the soft hum of the Studer's transformer. I picked up the letter first. My name, Marjorie, curled across the front in the slanted script I'd known since we were 18. The paper felt heavier than it should. The date in the top corner stopped my breath. March 3rd, 2 months before he died. "My love," the first line began. "If you're reading this, it means I ran out of time." I read it once straight through, eyes stinging, heart pounding. Then I read it again, slower, absorbing every word. He called me Marge halfway down the page, the way he always did when he was trying to lighten something heavy. He apologized for not telling me sooner. He explained, in detail, the way he always did, laying out facts like carefully coiled cables. He'd been sick for longer than he'd let on. That part hurt, but it wasn't a shock. What did shock me was everything else. "About a year ago," he wrote, "I noticed some things about Travis. Questions he asked when he thought you weren't listening. Things he looked up on his phone when Lauren left the room. I wanted to believe I was being a paranoid old man. But then I heard him on the phone in the driveway. There, in Elliot's precise, meticulous words, was the story of how he'd started recording, of the tiny digital recorder he'd tucked into the coat closet before a dinner when Travis and a friend were talking in the hall, of the hard drive he'd cloned when Lauren asked Elliot to help set up their home office computer, of the months of quietly watching, listening, connecting dots. "I didn't tell you because I didn't have proof yet," he wrote. "And if I'd been wrong, I would have hurt our daughter for no reason. You would have wanted to face it together. I know that. But Marge, this is the one thing I couldn't risk." He'd copied the most important files to the little black USB drive and labeled the folder Insurance. That was tucked into the envelope now, next to my fingers. "Travis isn't just lazy," Elliot wrote. "He's a predator. He's done this before, at least twice that I've been able to verify. He finds people like us older, stable, with something worth taking, and he worms his way in through their children." The names were there. Donna Whitaker in Tucson, Mabel Ortiz in Albuquerque, dates, addresses, case numbers. Notes written in his tiny engineer script down the margin. Same pattern, same language. Home sold, mother in facility, money gone. "I've been working with Charles," he went on. "Yes, that Charles, from the radio station days. He's a cybersecurity guy now, says InfoSec, like it's one word. We've been tracking Travis's online activity. There's enough here for serious concern, but not yet enough for a prosecutor to bite. If I get the time, I'll put it all in order. If I don't, you'll have to." Next to his signature, "All my love, always, Elliot," he'd drawn a tiny heart with an arrow through it. It looked ridiculous next to the neat paragraphs of investigative notes, and yet somehow it made everything worse. My vision blurred. A tear hit the bottom of the page and spread like ink. On the table beside me, the little USB drive waited. My hands shook as I picked it up, felt its cheap plastic edges dig into my fingers. I dug my laptop out of my bag. Lauren had given it to me last Christmas, insisting my old one was one lightning strike away from the Stone Age, and opened it. The file explorer blinked to life when I plugged in the drive. One folder, all caps. Travis, Parker, evidence. The world narrowed to a small rectangle of light and a list of file names. Audio. 1. Call. With Lenny, 07 to 14. Audio. 2. Call. Donna's brother, 02 to 03. Screenshot. Email. Lauren, lender, subject, mom starting to slip. Spreadsheet. Lauren, CC, activity. Photos. Travis, with Mabel's mother. My stomach churned. I clicked the first audio file. Travis's voice filled the small room immediately, tinny but unmistakable. I'm telling you, man, it's easy money. You find some old lady sitting on a paid-off house and a daughter or son who feels guilty about putting her in a home. You sell them security and peace of mind. That's it. A second voice, male, a little deeper. And what happens when the guilt wears off, T? Travis laughed, a sound I'd heard too many times over my kitchen table. By then we're in another state, he said. New names, new marks, that's the beauty of it. Old people are forgetful, courts are slow. As long as the paperwork looks clean, nobody cares until it's too late. My hand flew to my mouth. I let the file play, every word twisting a knife. Another audio clip was a voicemail he'd left for someone named Ray. Hey man, just got news from Lauren's lender, Travis said. Pre-approved as long as Mom, that's Marjorie, agrees to co-sign or sell. She's starting to, what did the doc say? Show her age. His mock concerned tone made bile rise in my throat. Give me 18 months tops. We'll be done. House, pension, whatever else she's sitting on. Then Guatemala, baby. Email screenshots, painstakingly captured and printed as PDFs. An email from Lauren to some financial advisor. My husband thinks my mom is getting more forgetful. I'm not sure, but should we talk about options if she can't live alone? Elliot had highlighted that line, added a note. Who suggested this? Another email, this time from Travis, forwarding a brochure for an assisted living facility, with the comment, Babe, we need to think about this sooner rather than later. Your mom is sweet, but she's not safe alone. The credit card spreadsheet made my head spin. Charles's name was in the metadata, along with notes in a different colored font. New card opened in Lauren's name 6 months ago. Primary user appears to be Travis. Cash advances, online gambling, high-end hotels. I was a lod. Interspersed among the files were scanned documents. A draft petition for guardianship, with blanks where my name would go. A search history screenshot. Arizona grounds for declaring parent incompetent. At the bottom of the folder was a document titled, Donna, Whitaker. Summary. Mabel, Ortiz. Summary. Elliot had interviewed them personally. He'd typed their stories, added his own observations, then saved their contact info. Donna's mother had lived with her for years. Travis had convinced her she was unsafe, orchestrated a rushed sale of the house, then emptied the account and vanished. Mabel's aunt had run a small motel. Travis had become her business partner, then financial guardian, then sole owner of the property. She now lived in subsidized housing on the edge of town. There was more. So much more. Enough to make my head pound. When I couldn't take any more, I closed the laptop with a shaky breath. The second tape case caught my eye. The first was labeled, To Marjorie, if I'm gone. The second simply read, For Lauren. The little brass key, taped to a white business card from First Canyon Credit Union, had a handwritten note on the back. Safe deposit box 312, for when you're ready, my love. You're not alone. I pressed the key into my palm until it hurt. Okay, I whispered into the quiet room. Okay, Elliot. I hear you. Then I stood, slid the USB and both tapes into my purse, and went to find Howard. Donna Whitaker sounded like she'd been waiting years for someone to ask the right question. Her number rang twice before she picked up. I was back home by then, in my armchair by the front window, Elliot's letter open on the coffee table beside me. The autumn light in Phoenix had that flat, too bright quality that made everything look like a movie set. Hello? The voice on the other end was reedy, guarded. Miss Whitaker? I said. My name is Marjorie Hale. My husband was Elliot Hale. He may have called you a few months ago about a man named Travis Parker? There was a long pause. I could almost hear the click of gears in her mind. That man, she said finally. The two words were heavy enough to bend steel. Yes, I remember Elliot, polite, asked the right questions. I was afraid I'd never hear from him again. I'm so sorry, I said softly. He passed away in May. Donna's inhale crackled over the line. I'm sorry, she said. He was kind. I could tell, even over the phone. I'm sorry you lost him, Miss Hale. Thank you. I wrapped my free arm around my middle. He left me some of his notes. About Travis. I was hoping, if you're willing, that you could tell me what happened. In your own words. Another pause. Then a sigh. Call me Donna, she said. And yes, I can tell you, maybe if enough of us tell it, someone will listen. She talked for nearly an hour. Her mother, Caroline, had been 80 when she met Travis. He'd been volunteering at the senior center, charming everyone with his guitar and his easy laugh. He'd taken a shine to Caroline, helped her fill out forms, driven her to appointments. Donna had been grateful at first. She worked full-time and couldn't always be there. Then the comments started. "Your mom seems more confused lately," he'd say. "Did she always misplace things like this?" He'd pull Donna aside after bingo, looking concerned. "I caught Caroline almost leaving the stove on. That scared me, Donna. What if she burns the house down? We need to think about her safety." "He made me feel like I was failing her," Donna said. "Like if I didn't listen to him, I was being selfish. He always framed it as, we. We need to protect her, Donna. We need to think long-term." Within a year, he'd convinced them to put Caroline in a boutique memory care community. The only way they could afford it was to sell Caroline's house, the bungalow she'd lived in for 48 years. "We sold it for $260,000, Donna said, voice flattening. "The money went into an account he set up. He called it a family care fund. My name was on it, but so was his. For convenience," he said, "so he could pay the facility, handle bills while I was at work. I signed, Miss Hale. I signed because I thought I was doing the right thing." Her mother lasted 6 months in the facility. She fell twice, developed pneumonia, and died in a hospital bed 3 miles from the house she'd begged to go back to. "I went to check the account the week after the funeral," Donna said. "It was empty. Travis had left town 2 days after Mom died. Phone disconnected, no forwarding address. The bank said because his name was on the account, it wasn't fraud." Her voice cracked. "He took everything, the house, the security, the last thing my mother had to show for a life of work." I closed my eyes. "Donna, I am so sorry. Don't you dare apologize for him," she said sharply. Then softer. "But thank you." She warned me, like Elliot's note said, about the pattern. "And listen, Miss Hale," she said. "It doesn't start with money. It starts with stories. She's getting forgetful." She left the door unlocked. "Little things, they pile up. You start to doubt what you see with your own eyes because someone keeps telling you a different story." Her voice intensified. "That's gaslighting. That's how they do it. If Travis is sniffing around your house, you write everything down. Every conversation, every little comment. It'll be the only thing that keeps you from thinking you're crazy." After I hung up, I sat very still for a long time. Then I picked up my notebook, turned to a fresh page, and wrote in block letters across the top, "Things Travis has said about me." Under it, bullet points started to appear. "Are you sure you turned the stove off, Marjorie? Didn't you already tell that story? Maybe you shouldn't drive at night anymore. I worry about you alone in this big house." When the page was full, I turned to the next. Mabel Ortiz confirmed everything Donna had said and added something that made my blood run cold. "He kept calling me Miss Ortiz," she said, laughing without humor. "Like I was his teacher and he was the good little boy. Wasn't long before it was Auntie Mabel." Next thing I knew, he had power of attorney, and I'd signed my motel over to him for tax reasons. Her voice hardened. "That predator stole my sister's legacy and turned my lobby into a vape shop. I hope he rots." She called him that guy and that predator throughout, with a venom that made me grip the phone so hard my knuckles ached. By the time I hung up with her, the pattern was carved into my mind like words in stone. Gaslighting, creeping concern, isolation, paperwork, sale, disappear. Lauren was somewhere in the middle of that list. Maybe closer to the end than I wanted to admit. I set the phone down on the coffee table and let myself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then I wiped my face, blew my nose, and reached for Elliot's letter again. There was another name I needed to call. Charles Beck. Charles looked exactly like someone Elliot would trust with secrets. He met me at a quiet coffee shop 2 blocks from the library where I'd worked most of my adult life. He sat with his back to the wall, gray hair pulled into a low ponytail, wire-rimmed glasses perched halfway down his nose. A laptop, covered in stickers I didn't recognize, sat open on the table in front of him. "Marjorie?" he said, standing as I approached. "Yes." I offered my hand. "You must be Charles." He clasped it warmly. "I am," he said, And I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. Elliot spoke about you sometimes, I said, sitting. Usually when something on the internet scared him. Charles chuckled. I'm not surprised. He was convinced the cloud was just someone else's computer. He wasn't wrong. The waitress came. We ordered. When she left, Charles's expression sobered. Howard called me, he said. Told me you'd found the letter. And the USB. I nodded, heart thudding. Elliot and I started digging into Travis about a year ago, Charles said. At first, we thought maybe he was just your garden-variety idiot with a gambling problem. But then we saw the patterns, the accounts, the searches. He reached into his messenger bag and pulled out a thin folder. I printed the highlights. I opened it. Bank statements. Red circles around withdrawals from accounts in Lauren's name. Columns labeled merchant and location. Populated with upscale restaurants, hotels, online gambling sites. There are 3 cards in Lauren's name, Charles said. 2 she knows about, 1 she doesn't. Guess which one is maxed out? IS. He tapped a page where cash advance repeated down the column. He used her social to open it? I asked, anger rising like bile. Almost certainly, Charles said. He's done it before. He uses the relationships he creates to get enough personal info to slip through identity checks. It's a step up from what Elliot found with Donna and Mabel, but the bones are the same. He flipped to another page. Search history, he said, pulled from their shared computer after Elliot copied the drive. See these? His finger ran down a list of queries. Arizona guardianship process elderly parent. How to prove parent incompetent. Can son-in-law sign for mother-in-law house? Selling house to pay for assisted living legal? My hands curled into fists. He's building a case, Charles said quietly. In his head and on paper. The narrative goes like this. Marjorie is slipping. It's dangerous for her to live alone. We love her and want what's best. The house must be sold to fund proper care. He looked up, meeting my eyes. Your house is paid off, right? Yes, I said. Elliot and I paid the last of the mortgage 5 years ago. And it's worth what now, ballpark? 350? 400? 2, asked. Zillow says 380, I said automatically. I checked once, out of idle curiosity. Now the number made my skin prickle. Charles nodded. Combine that with whatever retirement accounts you have, plus Social Security, and you're looking at a tidy nest egg. He closed the folder. From a predator's perspective, Marjorie, you're a high-value target. The words made my insides go cold. What can we do? I asked. Elliot kept saying in his notes that there wasn't enough for a prosecutor to bite. Is there now? Not yet, Charles said. He hasn't taken anything from you directly. He's committed fraud using Lauren's name, but that's complicated, legally. He rubbed his forehead. The problem with people like Travis is they live in the gray zone between poor choices and criminal behavior. Until they cross a clear line, cops can't do much. And Elliot, his voice softened. Elliot didn't want to scare you without a plan. So we just wait for him to hurt us? I asked bitterly. Charles shook his head. No, we document. We prepare, and we make sure Lauren sees the truth when the time comes. Lauren, I whispered, my sweet, stubborn girl. I tried to warn her about Travis when they first got serious. We fought. She said I was judging him because he didn't have a traditional career path. I backed off because I didn't want to lose her. I swallowed. I don't want to lose her now either. You won't, Charles said quietly. But she's wrapped up in him. If you go at him head on, he'll spin it as jealousy, grief, paranoia. He'll twist your concern until she sees you as the enemy. I didn't need him to tell me that. I'd seen it already in small ways. So what do you suggest? I asked. You keep a record of everything he says and does around you, Charles said. You don't give him access to your passwords, your accounts, your paperwork. You put your will and any property titles where he can't get to them. He slid a business card across the table. And the next time he slips up, the next time he shows his hand, you call me and the police. Elliot did most of the groundwork. We just have to finish it. I picked up the card. His name was embossed in simple black letters. Are you doing this? I hesitated. For Elliot? For you, he said, because you're in danger. And because Elliot was my friend. He used to drag me to jazz clubs when I fell into code rabbit holes and forgot there was a world beyond my monitor. A small smile tugged at his mouth. He'd smack me if I ignored his family now. My eyes burned. "Thank you, Charles," I said. "I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but thank you." "Start by breathing," he said gently. "Then start writing things down. It's a vetter." Dinner was pot roast because I wanted something solid on the table. I'd called Lauren 2 days after meeting Charles, my voice as normal as I could make it. "Sweetheart, why don't you and Travis come over Saturday?" I said. "I'll make your dad's favorite." There was a pause. I could hear traffic through her car window. "Mom, are you still mad?" she asked. "Yes," I said honestly. "But I'm your mother. I can be mad and still want to feed you. Come for dinner. We'll talk." When they arrived, Travis carried a bottle of red wine in one hand and his phone in the other. Lauren held a dessert box from some bakery in Scottsdale, the kind with ribbon and a label that cost more than the cake. "Mom," she said, hugging me at the door. She held on longer than usual. "You smell like pot roast." "That's because it's pot roast," I said. "Hi, sweetheart." Travis leaned in for an air kiss near my cheek. "Marjorie," he said with practiced warmth. "We brought a cab from that place Greg recommended. Pairs great with red meat." "Thank you," I said, taking the bottle. "Come in. Dinner's almost ready." We sat at the oak table Elliot had refinished in our first year here. I poured iced tea for myself, wine for them. The conversation stayed safely on Lauren's work, busy, the weather, hot, and the latest streaming show they thought I would love if I just gave it a chance. It didn't take Travis long to steer it where he wanted. "You know, babe," he said halfway through his second helping. "Mom," he stressed the word, "should really see those pictures from Tulum. Show her how much she'd enjoy traveling instead of rattling around this house alone." "Travis," Lauren said in warning. "What?" He took a sip of wine. "I'm just saying, Marjorie, you'd love it. Warm water, fresh food. People are so respectful to elders down there." "Elders," I repeated. He smiled like he hadn't noticed. "You know what I mean." "I like my house," I said. "The water comes out of the tap and the roof doesn't leak." He laughed like I'd made a joke. "For now," he said. "But these old places are money pits. One pipe bursts, one storm hits, and suddenly you're underwater." "I don't think that's how water works," I said mildly. He grinned. "You know what I mean, Mom." The way he dropped the Marjorie and replaced it with Mom always felt like a costume he put on when he needed to sell me something. He set his fork down, adopting a serious expression. "Look," he said, "Babe and I have been talking, and we're worried about you." Lauren stiffened. "Travis, it's okay," he said, patting her hand. "We have to say it." He turned back to me. "You're here alone in a big house. You've had a few close calls." "Have I?" I asked. He ticked them off on his fingers. "You left the front door unlocked last week?" "I was taking groceries in and out," I said. "I locked it once I was done." "And you left a burner on," he added. "We saw it when we dropped by." "Right, babe?" Lauren shifted. "It was on low," she said. "And you were boiling tea, Mom. Travis just worries." "What was simmering on the stove when you came in?" I asked. She blinked. Chamomile?" I smiled thinly. "Exactly," Travis shrugged. "Okay, so maybe that wasn't the best example, but there's the stairs." He pointed vaguely toward the hallway. "You're up and down them all day. One fall can change everything at your age." "At my age?" I repeated. "And the pills?" he added. I went still. "The pills?" I asked. "You told us you almost mixed up your dosages last month," he said. "I said I had to buy one of those plastic organizers because I didn't like having 3 bottles on the counter," I said. "That's called being proactive, Travis." He laughed. Sure. I'm just saying, a place with on-site nursing, grab bars and all that, it might not be the worst idea. We looked at one, right, babe?" Lauren's eyes widened. "We?" she repeated. He barreled on. "Sunset Estates. Nice. Not too far. They have book clubs, yoga, all that. They could probably even let you bring some of your tapes." "The ones I have left," I murmured. "Travis," Lauren said sharply. "Drop it." He looked at her with injured surprise. "I'm just looking out for your mom, babe. Don't start." A prickle crawled up the back of my neck. "You seem to know a lot about my pills," I said casually. Considering the bottles are in a locked cabinet. Oh, that. He waved a hand. Lauren told me your code once in case of emergency. What was it again? Oh, 824? My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. My wedding anniversary. You know the code to my medicine cabinet? I asked quietly. Travis blinked, realizing his mistake a half-second too late. I mean, I don't remember it exactly, he said quickly. I just know the month. Lauren mentioned, that's all. My daughter stared at him, frown deepening. I did? She said. I don't remember that. He laughed, too loud. You're always talking, babe. With your mom, with me. It all blends together. I filed the moment away in my mind, underlined it in red. After dinner, I insisted on doing the dishes myself. You two relax, I said, stacking plates. I'll bring dessert in. Travis offered to help. I'm not a total Neanderthal, Marjorie, but I waved him off. When I came back to the living room with coffee and cake, the couch was empty. Lauren? I called. In here, Mom, she answered from down the hall. I followed her voice to find her standing in the doorway of Elliot's old office. The door was open, the light on. Travis stood inside, hands clasped behind his back like a man window shopping. What are you doing? I asked. He jumped. Oh, he said, smiling too quickly. We were just looking. I got turned around trying to find the bathroom. The bathroom is off the kitchen, I said. Where it has always been. He laughed, brushing past me. This place is a maze, he said, touching my arm in what he probably thought was a reassuring gesture. You should get one of those little indoor maps printed for visitors. When they left an hour later, Lauren hugged me tightly at the door. Thank you for dinner, she said. It was really good. Like when Dad was. She trailed off, eyes shining. I kissed her temple. Come again soon, sweetheart. Travis grinned, keys jingling in his hand. We'll plan a game night, he said. Get you hooked on something modern. When the door finally closed behind them, the house exhaled. I went straight to the kitchen table, pulled out my notebook, and wrote, told me he knows the code to my pill cabinet. Tried to push Sunset Estates again, called house, unsafe, me, at my age. We looked at a place. Lauren didn't remember, in Elliot's office, by accident. Bathroom excuse. Then I took a picture of the page with my phone and texted it to Charles. His response came a minute later. Charles. We're close. Don't confront him yet. Next step is Lauren. I invited Lauren over alone. Just you, sweetheart, I said on the phone. I need to talk to you about your father. The pause on the other end told me she'd heard the difference in my voice. Is everything okay? She asked. No, I said honestly. But it will be, if we can talk. Today. I'll come after work, she said. Around 5? I spent the afternoon laying everything out on the kitchen table. Elliot's letter, the printed emails, Charles's spreadsheets, my notebook, the USB files queued on my laptop, the summaries of Donna and Mabel's stories. When the doorbell rang at 4:52, my heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Hi, Mom, Lauren said, eyes scanning my face immediately. You look pale. Are you eating? You should sit down, I said gently. Please, she hesitated, then sat. Her hands twisted in her lap, knuckles white. I need you to let me talk for a little while before you say anything, I said. Can you do that? This sounds scary, she said, trying to joke and failing. But, yeah. Okay. I slid Elliot's letter toward her. This is from your father, I said, dated March, 2 months before he died. Read it. She picked it up with trembling fingers. As her eyes moved across the page, her face went through a dozen tiny shifts. Confusion, disbelief, hurt, anger. He was investigating Travis? She whispered. For a year? Yes, I said. Why didn't he tell me? She demanded, voice rising. Why didn't he come to me? Because he didn't have proof yet, I said quietly. And he didn't want to blow up your marriage on a suspicion. He loved you too much to risk being wrong. She shook her head, jaw tightening. This is ridiculous, she said. Dad never liked Travis. You know that. He didn't like that he left his corporate job. He didn't like that he didn't finish his MBA. He didn't like that he sometimes gambled. He was biased. He didn't like what Travis does, I said. There's a difference. I opened my laptop and played the audio clip of Travis talking about old ladies sitting on paid-off houses. Lauren's face drained of color. That could be anyone, she said, voice faint. Is that your husband's voice? I asked. Yes, but… I clicked to the next file. Travis's voicemail about Lauren's lender, and Mom starting to slip. Okay, he's venting, she said. He's exaggerating. He does that. It doesn't mean he's… I slid the printed email across the table. The subject line read, Mom starting to slip. The body. We should talk about options if she can't live alone. That's from you, I said softly. To a financial advisor. She blinked. Travis told me, he said. She rubbed her forehead. He said you'd left the door unlocked twice. That you'd forgotten a doctor's appointment. He made it sound like maybe you needed more help than I could give. Do you believe that's true? I asked. Or did you believe it because he said it over and over? She didn't answer. I set Donna's and Mabel's summaries in front of her. These are women your father found, I said. Women Travis targeted before he met you. He used the same words, the same tactics, the same timeline. She scanned them, growing more and more agitated. This is insane, she burst out. You're grieving, Mom. You miss Dad. You never liked Travis. Now you're letting this conspiracy theory from a man who was on morphine the last 3 months of his life turn into some kind of witch hunt. Lauren, no. She stood so fast her chair scraped. I won't let you drag my marriage through the mud because you're lonely and angry. Travis has been there for me in ways Dad never was. He believes in me. He believes in what I represent on a balance sheet, I said, sharper than I meant to. Elliot believed in you. Her eyes filled with tears. I can't do this, she said, backing away. I can't listen to you tear down my husband with charts and old women's sob stories. Then call them yourself, I said quietly. Donna, Mabel. Their numbers are here in your father's handwriting. If I'm wrong, if he was wrong, they'll tell you so. If I'm right, she stared at the paper, breathing hard. I'm not calling random strangers, she said. I'm going home, and I'm telling Travis that my mother has lost her mind. Lauren, please, I said, my voice breaking on her name. Sweetheart, your father died trying to protect you. Don't let that be for nothing. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Goodbye, Mom, she said stiffly. I need time to think. Or not think. I don't know. She grabbed her purse and fled, the front door slamming behind her. The silence that followed was worse than any fight we'd ever had. I sank into the chair she'd just vacated and folded Elliot's letter back into its envelope, hands trembling. Okay, I whispered to the empty kitchen. Okay, love, I've done what I can. The rest is up to her. The call came at 1:08 a.m. I'd given up on sleep around 10, made tea, watched the streetlights paint bars on the ceiling. At midnight, I started a load of laundry because the idea of future me opening the washer to sour clothes felt unbearable. When the phone shrieked in the quiet house, my heart stopped. I grabbed it on the second ring. Hello? Mom. Lauren's voice was shredded. Mom. Sweetheart, what's wrong? Are you okay? Are you hurt? I called them. She sobbed. I called Donna. And Mabel. They told me everything. It was him. It was exactly him. The words. The way he talked about their mothers, their aunts, their guilt. It was like listening to my life, but different names. I sank into my kitchen chair. Oh, Lauren, I whispered. I'm so sorry. I came home and he was on the couch. She rushed on, watching TV like nothing. I asked him where he really grew up, what his real middle name is. I asked him where his consulting firm is registered. He laughed at first, said I was being dramatic. Then I asked about the credit card I didn't know about. She inhaled sharply. His face changed. Mom, she whispered. Like someone flipped a switch. His eyes went cold. He said, Who've you been talking to, babe? I said, Donna and Mabel. He called them crazy bitches, said they were lying to get pity. I told him about the audio files, the emails, your notebook. What did he do? I asked, though I already knew. He went. Dead quiet, she said. Then he stood up and started grabbing things. His laptop, his hard drive, a duffel bag. He shoved clothes in with no folding, just stuffed them in. I asked him where he was going. He said, Anywhere but here. Her voice broke. I begged him to stop, she sobbed. I said we could fix it. That we could go to therapy? To church? I don't know. He laughed at me. Said, "You think this is a phase, baby? This is who I am." Then he looked at me and said, "You were supposed to be my retirement plan. You and your confused mommy." Her breath hitched. "Mom, he called you low-hanging fruit." I closed my eyes. "Of course he did," I said, voice shaking. "He was gone in 10 minutes, she whispered. Took the car. I just stood there. There was a muffled sound, like she was pressing a hand to her mouth. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. "I don't know where he is." "Okay," I said, forcing my brain into gear. "Okay, sweetheart, listen to me. You need to call Charles. Right now." "Charles?" she echoed. "The man your father was working with," I said. "His number's on the card I gave you. If you don't still have it, I'll text it to you. He can track things we can't." "Mom, it's the middle of the night," she said weakly. "He told me to call any time," I said. "And if there was ever a time, Lauren, it's now." She sniffed. "What if he doesn't pick up?" "Then you call me back," I said. "And we go to the police together. You're not alone in this. You hear me?" "Yes," she whispered. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry I didn't listen to you. To Dad. I was so stupid." "No," I said, throat tight. "You were trusting. You loved your husband. That's not stupid. That's what people like him exploit. This is on him, not you." 80 years. I stayed on the line while she called Charles on her cell. He answered on the second ring, as promised. Within 20 minutes, he'd texted us both an update. Charles. He just used Lauren's card at a motel near Phoenix Airport. Cash withdrawal at an ATM inside the lobby. I'm seeing a one-way ticket purchase to Guatemala City on his email account. 6:30 a.m. flight. "He's running," Lauren whispered when I read the message out loud. "Yes," I said. "And this time, he's not getting away." The terminal smelled like burnt coffee and tired people. We met Charles in my driveway at 3:30 a.m. He'd arrived in an older Subaru, laptop bag slung crosswise over his chest. Lauren looked hollowed out, eyes red, hair jammed under a baseball cap. She sat in the back seat like a child, shoulders hunched. "You okay to do this?" Charles asked her gently as we buckled in. She nodded once. "If I don't," she said, voice flat, "he'll do it again. To someone else's mom. Someone else's daddy." The way she said daddy made my heart splinter. Charles drove, phone mounted on the dash, showing a real-time flight board. "I've already spoken to a Detective Reynolds," he said. "Elliot had him half-briefed months ago, just in case. Thanks to that, we're not starting from scratch." "How much do they know?" I asked. "Enough to put out a heads up when Travis's name pops up on any outgoing flight purchase," Charles said. "The fraud charges are still messy, but between the stolen identities, the forged applications, and today's little sprint, I think we have enough for them to hold him, especially with Lauren's statement." At the word, statement, Lauren's grip on my hand tightened. "You'll have to tell them everything," I said quietly. "Can you do that?" "I have to," she said, "for Donna, for Mabel, for Dad." The sky was just starting to lighten when we reached the airport. Inside, the world was a blur of rolling suitcases, early morning yawns, and the hiss of espresso machines. Charles led us to a spot near the security line, just out of the main flow. "Detective Reynolds is already here," he murmured. "Plain clothes. He'll approach when he sees Travis." We didn't have to wait long. Target approaching. Charles's phone buzzed in his hand. It was a text from an unknown number. "Blue backpack, green jacket, gate B12 flight." "There," Lauren whispered. Travis stood 20 feet away, pushing a carry-on and a medium suitcase. His beard was scruffy, hair pulled under a baseball cap, but he still wore the same expensive sneakers and watch. He looked normal, ordinary, like any other man catching an early flight. He pulled his phone out, scrolled, checked his boarding pass. For a fleeting second, my brain tried to overlay the image of him at my kitchen table over this scene. It didn't fit. 2 men stepped out of the crowd, closing in from either side. I wouldn't have picked them out as police, no uniforms, just button-down shirts and jeans, but there was something about the way they moved, controlled and coordinated, that screamed authority. "Mr. Parker?" the taller one said. Travis blinked. Yeah? I'm Detective Reynolds, the man said, holding up a badge. Can you step out of line a moment? We need to speak with you. End quote. Travis laughed. That same airy sound he used when he thought someone was overreacting. Whatever this is, I'm sure we can sort it out later, he said. I've got a flight to catch. I'm afraid not, Reynolds said. We have a warrant for your arrest. You're under investigation for fraud, identity theft, and elder exploitation in multiple states. Travis's smile froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then he dropped his boarding pass and ran. It was almost comical how fast he moved in those designer sneakers, weaving through the line, knocking into a businessman with a rolling bag. People shouted. A coffee cup went flying. The second detective lunged, missed his arm by inches. Travis veered left, heading for a side exit. He didn't make it. 2 airport security officers tackled him from the side, sending all 3 of them crashing into a display of neck pillows. Travis hit the floor hard, curses exploding from his mouth. Get off me, he screamed. What the hell are you doing? I haven't done anything. Travis Parker, Reynolds said, breathless as he slammed a handcuff around his wrist. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I want a lawyer, Travis shouted, thrashing. This is bullshit. Babe! His eyes scanned the crowd. They found us. For a second, everything went still. His gaze locked on Lauren, then me. The veins at his temples pulsed. You, he spat, straining against the officers. You did this. Lauren flinched. I squeezed her hand. You took my life, you stupid. You ungrateful little... He choked off the word under Reynolds' warning glare. Do you have any idea what I've done for you? For your useless mother? Stop talking, Mr. Parker, the detective said evenly. Travis ignored him. You think you're some kind of hero? He yelled at Lauren. You and your messed up daddy issues? You were supposed to be my retirement plan, babe. The easiest mark I've ever had. Your mom, he jerked his head at me, sneer twisting his mouth, was a gold mine. Confused, sentimental, sitting on a pile of bricks and memories. Easiest score I've ever lined up. Lauren made a strangled sound. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't look away. You're nothing without me, Travis snarled at her. You hear me? Nothing. You couldn't even fill out your own loan applications. Mr. Parker, Reynolds snapped. That's enough. For your own sake. Travis laughed, wild and broken. For my own sake? He spat. What do I care? I'll be out in 5 years, 10 tops. I'll find another idiot with a mother who collects vintage junk and stories. Something in me snapped. You liar, I said, stepping forward before I could think better of it. The words came out calm, almost serene. You won't hurt anyone else's mother. His gaze swung to me, blazing with hatred. You don't get to talk, he hissed. You're confused. You don't even know what day it is. I know exactly what day it is, I said. It's the day you finally face consequences. Reynolds nodded to his partner. They hauled Travis to his feet, hands cuffed behind his back. He kept shouting as they led him away, but the words blurred, muffled by the buzz of the terminal. When he disappeared through a side door, the silence around us was broken only by the low murmur of people returning to their own lives. Lauren sagged against me. I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her shake. It's over, I murmured into her hair. He's done. Is it? She whispered. He said 5 years, 10. That's not long. It'll be long enough, Charles said quietly behind us, especially with what the other states have. How bad is it? I asked, still holding my daughter. Bad, he said. Good for us, bad for him. There are at least 3 other victims we didn't know about. Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. Plus the identity he stole before he met Lauren. The feds will want a piece of this. Lauren shuddered. I didn't know, she whispered, as if confessing a sin. I swear, I didn't know. I know, I said. I believe you. I was mated. She clung to me like she had when she was small and thunderstorms shook her bedroom windows. For the first time in months, I felt something like the beginning of safety. The legal process was long and ugly, but it moved. Detective Reynolds and the district attorney's office piled charges on Travis fraud, identity theft, theft by deception, elder abuse, forgery. The U.S. Attorney's office added wire fraud to the stack, when they saw the interstate nature of his work. Donna and Mabel gave statements. So did Lauren. So did I. There were video calls with prosecutors in other states, boxes of documents, hours of testimony. Every time I walked into the courthouse, I felt Elliot's presence like a hand at the small of my back. Travis's public defender did his best to spin it as addiction-fueled poor choices, but the sheer volume of evidence crushed any hope of a sympathetic narrative. The audio files alone were damning. The clip of him bragging about easiest scores played in court like a confession. In the end, he took a plea deal, 12 years in federal prison, with a chance of release in 10 if he behaved. Donna called me the day the news broke. I know it doesn't bring my mother back, she said, voice rough. But it helps. Thank you, Miss Hale. It was Elliot, I said. He started it. We just followed through. Then thank him for me, she said. Wherever he is. Mabel sent me a postcard with a picture of the motel she'd lost and a note on the back. Maybe I'll buy it back at auction when the bank repos it. Till then, knowing he's eating cafeteria food instead of scotch makes my coffee taste better. Lauren's marriage to Travis was annulled on the grounds of fraud. The judge's words were precise. This union was entered into under false pretenses and is hereby declared null. Lauren cried in the hallway afterward, relief and grief tangled together. I thought I'd chosen my forever, she sobbed into my shoulder. Turns out he was just a long con. It's not sided. You chose love, I said. He chose theft. Those choices are not equal. The credit card companies forgave most of the debt after the fraud investigation. There was still a $5,000 balance no one would budge on. I wrote a check without telling Lauren, using money from the safe deposit box Elliot had set up. The key had opened a world I'd never imagined. Tech stocks Elliot had bought in the 90s, just in case, had ballooned into something I could hardly wrap my mind around. The bank manager had to repeat the number twice before it made sense. $348,000. Your husband was either very lucky or very smart, she'd said. Both, I'd replied. The money sat like a quiet fact in the background while our lives rearranged themselves. Lauren moved back in with me for a while. She took her old room, posters still on the walls, piano still in the corner. She started therapy, twice a week, with a trauma specialist. Some days she came home from work and crashed on the couch, staring at nothing. Other days she baked cookies at 10 p.m., because she needed to feel like something could turn out right if you follow the steps. Healing, I learned, was as non-linear as grief. I used part of the stock windfall to send checks to Donna and Mabel, $10,000 each, with handwritten notes. For your mother's memory, from someone who understands what it feels like to have your trust betrayed. Marjorie Hale. For your aunt's legacy. It's not enough, but it's something. M.H. Neither woman owed me anything, but they both called, crying, to say thank you. It feels like someone finally believes us, Donna said. That's worth more than the money. As for me, I kept my house. Elliot bought this roof for us, I told Lauren when she timidly suggested downsizing. I'm not giving it up because some con man put a for sale sign on it in his head. We painted the kitchen instead. Howard brought the Studer home on a Saturday morning, 3 months after Travis's sentencing. The sound of his van in the driveway made me look up from my coffee. It was distinctive, an old Ford with an exhaust rattle. He stepped out, walked to the back, and opened the double doors. 2 younger men climbed out after him, carrying the Studer between them like pallbearers with a very heavy, very sacred box. Lauren came downstairs in her robe, hair still damp from the shower. Is that? She breathed. Yes, I said, my chest tightening. That's your father's. We met them in the driveway. Howard's face was more lined than I remembered, but his smile was real. Morning, Marjorie, he said. Miss Hale. He nodded at Lauren. Mr. Garrison, she said. It's good to see you. End quote. Just Howard today, he said. We're off the clock. He gestured to the machine. Thought it was time she came home. You could have sold it, I said. Travis signed the papers. You paid him. Howard snorted. I paid him, he said, to keep him from hauling her to a pawn shop or a frat boy's den. The money's gone, I'm sure, but this... He patted the side of the Studer. This is worth more than $5,000 to the right person. And Elliot was the right person. He looked at Lauren. You think your dad would want some stranger pushing these buttons? He asked gently. Or you? Her eyes filled. Us, she whispered. He'd want us. Lauren and I led the way to the basement. The stain on the carpet where the stand had been weighted, like a bookmark in a story that had been paused too long. Howard's assistants set the stand back in its old spot, leveled it carefully, then settled the Studer on top. When they stepped back, it was as if the last several months had been a bad dream. The machine belonged there. The room felt balanced again. Howard checked the connections, flipped the power switch. The same familiar hum filled the air. The VU meters glowed, warm and steady. She's all yours, he said, stepping back. Heads are aligned, caps and belts replaced. She'll outlive all of us if you treat her right. Even way. He dug into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook. Elliot left this in the shop years ago, he said. I think he meant to give it to you. Maintenance notes, operating tips, little philosophies. He smiled sadly. Figured you could use a manual from the man himself. I took it reverently. Elliot's handwriting filled the pages. Dates, measurements, cryptic abbreviations, and every so often a note like, "Don't rush the rewind, good tape deserves patience," or "Let Lauren ride the faders next time, trust the kiddo's ears." Thank you, Howard, I said, voice thick. He nodded. Elliot saved my business, he said. You two saved who knows how many families from that bastard. It's the least I can do. After he left, the basement felt full. Of wires, yes, but also of ghosts and possibilities. Lauren ran her fingers lightly over the machine's transport buttons. I remember this sound, she murmured, as the reels spun slowly in test mode. Dad used to say it was his favorite lullaby. I smiled. He said it was the sound of time obeying you. I said, for once. We spent the afternoon reading through Elliot's notebook, learning how he wanted the machine treated. We threaded a blank tape, practicing start, stop, rewind, until Lauren's hands remembered the motions. By evening, we were both tired, covered in a fine dust of old cardboard and new resolve. We'll listen tomorrow, I said, touching the tape cases still in the secret compartment. When we're less likely to short something out with tears. Lauren laughed, a small cracked sound. Tomorrow, she agreed. The next day, we played his voice. We brought 2 chairs down to the basement and set them side by side in front of the Studer. I'd placed the tape labeled, "To Marjorie, If I'm Gone," on the left reel, just as Elliot's notebook prescribed. Lauren looked at me. Ready? She asked. No, I said honestly, but do it anyway. She hit play. There was a soft hiss, the crackle of leader tape, and then, Marge, his voice, warm, steady, with that faint rasp from too many years around cigarette smoke and bar air. For a moment, the air left my lungs entirely. If you're hearing this, he said, it means one of 2 things. 1, the doctors were wrong, and I've lived to 90, in which case, stop listening and go make me a sandwich. 2, the more likely option, we're both being honest, is that I've cashed in my chips, and you, my love, have survived the thing I was most afraid of. Lauren's hand found mine and gripped it tight. I was never afraid of dying, he went on. Not really. Comes with the territory after a certain age. What scared me was leaving you and Lauren behind with unfinished business, with danger circling like a vulture and me not there to wave my arms and scare it off. He sighed softly in our ears. You've probably found the letter and the files by now, he said. If you haven't, stop this tape and go talk to Howard. He knows where I hid them. I won't say too much here in case someone else is listening. Paranoid old audio guy, remember? I smiled through tears. He really had thought of everything. What I will say is this, he said. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not too emotional or too suspicious or stuck in the past. You are seeing what's in front of you clearly, the way you always have. Don't let anyone, especially a smiling man with pretty words, tell you otherwise. He paused. The tape hissed. Lauren, he said softly. Kiddo, if you're here too, listen to your mom. Lauren let out a sob. I know I've been a pain in your ass about school and work and... Men? He said, tone wry. I know I didn't always say it right, but I have never, not once, doubted your intelligence, your heart, your ability to see the truth once it's in front of you. If you're still with that man when you hear this, look at the facts. Not the story he spins. The facts. You'll know what to do. I can. He cleared his throat, and for a moment we both heard the strain in it, the illness he tried so hard to downplay. Back to you, my love, he said. You always hated when I made a big speech, so I'll keep this short. I've done what I can from here, saved what I could, left you with enough to be comfortable, to travel if you want, to stay in the house if you don't. He chuckled quietly. And yes, I know you. You're probably sitting there with your jaw clenched, thinking, damn it, Elliot, why didn't you tell me about the stocks? Consider this my final magic trick. You spent our whole lives supporting my passions, music, gear, late-night sessions. It was my turn to make sure you had something solid when I couldn't be there to fix the leaks. My face crumpled. If you did what I think you did, he went on, then you've stood up to Travis. You've believed Donna and Mabel. You've told Lauren the truth, even when it made her hate you for a while. That's what courage looks like, Marge. Not grand gestures. Just telling the truth and standing still while the storm hits. He took a breath. I am so proud of you, he said simply. Of both of you. Silence stretched, filled with hiss. And if you're anything like I remember, he said, voice lighter, you're probably crying and thinking you look a mess. You don't. You never do to me. It's gotta agree. He let out a slow exhale. Go live, my love, he said. Go to the places we talked about, or stay home and make new playlists. Teach someone else how to love the sound of tape. Laugh. Make our daughter laugh. Don't let my absence be the loudest thing in the room. Another pause. I'm done protecting you from here, he said. Not because I stopped loving you, but because you've proven, as you always do, that you can protect yourselves. That was always the point. I was never your shield. I was your bandmate. We played together. Now you and Lauren get to improvise without me. I can't wait to hear what you come up with, wherever I am. There was a soft click, then the sound of him humming under his breath, a familiar melody, the jazz standard he'd danced with me to in our tiny first apartment kitchen. The tape clicked again, and then stopped. We sat there, the two of us, in the quiet hum of the basement. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath until my chest hurt. I let it out in a shudder. Lauren leaned her head against my shoulder, shoulders shaking. Dad, she whispered. Daddy, I'm so sorry. He knew, I said, stroking her hair. He knew you were in a bad spell. He never blamed you. We stayed like that a long time. Later, when we'd both moved our chairs back and wiped our faces, Lauren pointed at the second tape. Do you think? She began. I think he'd want you to hear your part alone first, I said. Or with Charles, if you want backup. She nodded slowly. Maybe tomorrow, she said. I don't have any tears left today. I squeezed her hand. There will always be more, I said dryly. Unfortunately, she actually laughed. We went upstairs. The house felt different now, not because anything in it had changed, but because Elliot's voice had filled it again, if only for a few minutes. The fear that had lived in the corners, in the shadows of what-ifs, had been replaced by something steadier. He hadn't abandoned us. He hadn't left us unprepared. He'd done, with limited time and a failing body, the very best he could. The rest was on us. That evening, as the sun poured gold through the kitchen window, Lauren cut up vegetables for stir-fry, while I rinsed rice. The stewter hummed faintly through the floor, still warm from use. Mom? She said suddenly. Yes, sweetheart? Do you forgive me? She asked, not looking up from the cutting board. For selling the stewter, for marrying him, for all of it. I set the measuring cup down and turned to her. I was never angry at you for loving someone, I said. Only for how you talked to yourself when he made you doubt your worth. I forgive you. For all of it. And if your dad were here, he'd say there's nothing to forgive. She blinked rapidly, nodding. Okay, she said. Okay. We ate. We talked about small things, the neighbor's new dog, a book I wanted to read. It felt almost normal, this quiet domesticity built on shattered foundations. After dinner, I walked to the back window and looked out at the basement bulkhead, where a faint glow from the small window framed the stewter's silhouette. For years, Elliot had been the one guarding us, building buffers into our lives without fanfare. Now, even after death, his plans had unfolded like carefully recorded tracks. He hadn't saved us from pain that was never possible, but he'd saved us through it, given us tools, allies, evidence. A voice on tape reminding us that we weren't crazy, that we weren't alone. He'd given us his story too, one we could choose what to do with. I don't know who you are, listening to this, reading this out there in the vast, noisy world, but if there's one thing this whole mess has taught me, it's this. You're never too old to start paying attention, to change the story, to protect yourself and the people you love, or, for that matter, to learn how to run a reel-to-reel machine. So here's my question for you. Out there beyond my little house and my humming basement, if someone you loved sold the last piece of a person you'd built a life with, would you forgive them? And if you've ever ignored your gut because someone told you that you were confused, would you listen to it next time? Elliot's tape machine clicks softly in the room below me, cooling after another spin. Lauren hums in the kitchen as she washes dishes. The same tune her father hummed on that tape. He's gone. And somehow, impossibly, he's still here.